Hey everyone, it is Tuesday, and that means our expert series continues. And today we bring in Matt Shamus. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Michael. How
I'm
are
doing.
you?
I'm doing well. I always look forward to your background. Sometimes you're outside enjoying the weather, and today we're in your library, which is pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I got a stack of cigars over to my left, and my smoking loafers over to my right.
Oh, that's hilarious. So, hey, I know one thing we've been dying to talk about once we kind of had something to talk about is we came into this health event. You had a couple of commercial properties in contract, and you were able to share with us a couple weeks ago, I believe, that you kind of bought some time. I think you added 30 days or whatnot just to see what's happening. So, why don't you remind the audience first about what the two properties were, because they may not know, and then let's talk about what you've decided to do with each of them.
Well, we have I'll call it like a maybe B minus, C plus multifamily deal in contract, but the way that I would think about that more is it's a friendly deal. The seller is very friendly with us, and it's more, we kind of have more of an option to buy the property if we want. So we've kicked that can down the road. We have no urgency to perform there
Okay.
until we see a lot more data around rent collections and just what's going to happen. So I put the likelihood of that closing anytime soon at just very low.
So again, just so people don't have to go back and watch it, what city is it in? How many units? Blah blah blah.
This is just north of the North Carolina Virginia border in Virginia, but it's kind of part of the greater Greensboro, North
Mhm.
Carolina metro.
And how many
It's
units?
136 units,
Okay.
and just like a really it's actually a really nice project.
Mhm.
It's one that I'd be pretty excited about without the background of a pandemic.
Yeah, so it's nice
Because
again. Go ahead.
I was just going to say you have very modest rents.
Mhm.
Rents are in the uh, I think I think all of the units are two bedrooms,
Mm,
and rents are in the like $500 to $700 range.
mm,
So you have extremely modest rents,
mhm,
and what in multifamily at least, brokers love to call a proven value add strategy, which is basically you got an existing seller that's made upgrades to the interior of units,
mhm,
and they spend a certain amount of money. Let's say they spend $4,000 to upgrade flooring and some fixtures and lighting to make it look more modern,
mhm,
etc. And then they go charge $100 a month more in
mm.
rent, so they get $100 monthly rent premium. Well, for easy math, let's say you spent $3,600 on the renovation, and you get $100 rent premium.
Mhm.
Your return on your investment is $1,200 a year over a $3,600
Mhm.
investment. That's a 33% return. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, that's kind of the situation with this property. Uh, you're getting, you're going to spend $3,500 or $4,000 probably on a renovation, and you're going to get somewhere between a $90 and $125 rent premium.
Mm.
And it's been proven it needs to be executed on, call it 80% of the, 70 or 80% of the remaining units.
Gotcha. Cool. So again, it sounds like you're delaying that decision until we know more. I'm assuming you probably know this already. What was his April collection? Because I think you went into contract in March. Was it in the high 80s, low 90s? And then do you know what May to date was in that building?
I don't know. I don't know what May is, but yeah, the collections are in the 90s. I can't remember the exact
Yeah,
number for April. They're in
that's
the
not.
90s. The headline is that the property is performing better than the seller kind of expected,
Mm,
and that rings true with my experience with our multifamily properties. They're over April and May. They're performing better than what I expected them to.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
even like we had a vacancy, for instance, this week that got leased almost immediately,
Yeah.
and so um, I I remain cautious for sure,
Yeah.
but the data that I have in front of me is actually not terrible yet.
Yeah, and again, we haven't talked since last week. So our April collection ended up in the high 90s. I think it was 95 or 96.
Oh, wow.
We're already at 90 as of yesterday. I haven't seen the numbers. They come to me at 4:30. I think we were at 93 point something. So May is actually ahead of April collection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
Again, cautiously optimistic. Again, I think it's, food, water, food, shelter. And when you play in the affordable space, you know, people, and especially if it's quality, affordable stuff, right? Not slumlord stuff. I think
Yeah.
people are, you know, if they can, they will. And again, the ones that can't because of proven reasons, we're being very reasonable with everyone who got
Yeah.
caught in an unfortunate situation. All right, so you're kicking that can down the line. Sounds like a friendly relationship. So in theory, you don't have to make a decision until August or September. I'm just guessing at this point.
We'll check in every month
Okay.
and see where we are.
Hence
You
the
know?
option. Yeah. Okay. I got you.
Yeah. We'll just see how things are going.
Okay. Cool.
But then the other project, so we had two pieces of news actually this morning. So one project that we were selling has fallen out of contract.
Hmm.
So and this is just kind of what I think sellers are dealing with right now,
Mhm.
right? Things are falling out. They're taking longer to close. They're being asked to take a haircut. So that has fallen out of contract. So we'll go back to the drawing board and figure out what we want to do with that.
Mhm. And what was that? I
Uh,
don't remember that one. What were you selling?
so we were selling a hotel development
Got it.
site.
I remember that one. Yeah.
So the tricky thing about this is there's very few people that are going to spend money right now to go build a hotel, unless you have a pretty long-term and optimistic view on where things are going.
Mhm.
Now the market that we're in and the specific location are extremely strong, and hotel demand is very, very high. So I think those are things that are going to be in our favor. We're also getting next Tuesday, a week from today, we will be going before the Board of Adjustments in the city to get a special exception for this development, which is basically what that will mean is that we will have a fully entitled project at that point. So that means that when we go back out to market to find someone that wants to build a hotel on this site, they're going to be ready to, the site is ready for them to go run with.
Right.
So risk has been reduced for the buyer at that point, and in theory, the site becomes that much more valuable.
Yeah, because you've cleared an important hurdle that anybody would have to go through.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
So that fell out of contract.
Good luck on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that fell out of contract, and we have we have another project that we just negotiated a price reduction and a 6-month period of guaranteed rents.
That's where we talked about. I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So this project, we ended up getting close to right around $220,000 off of the seller's asking price. And we were getting a 6-month rent guarantee. And luckily, so this property is in Boise, Idaho. Interestingly, Boise has been spared the most drastic effects of the coronavirus, at least so far.
Mm-hmm.
Give you an example. There have been only 70 deaths in the entire state of Idaho from coronavirus, which is very low.
Yep.
And real estate activity is actually still pretty strong. Commercial real estate activity is quite strong. April, in fact, set a record in Boise for median home price.
Wow.
So now there is a bit lower inventory, which is a factor, right? It's just a supply and demand. But the fact that you have a record median home price in April is really interesting. I mean, there's something there that just speaks to the underlying kind of strength of the market. I think the economy and the belief that people have in that market's long-term prospects.
Yeah,
So
it's interesting. That's a great segue. So again, so you are closing on that one. Sorry, before we
we're
move
going to
on.
close. Yeah, we are going to close on that property. And we were, we just agreed to our kind of
Mm,
final
yeah,
price reduction and rent guarantee. And
cool.
basically what we entered the negotiation saying, listen, the world has changed since we entered contract. We're not trying to retrade the deal.
Hmm.
We don't want to squeeze anyone here, but we need some movement in order to feel confident
Hmm.
in our purchase.
Yeah,
And so we feel pretty good about what we were able to get, and our investors are really pleased with the outcome. So
nice.
I think we're in a good place there.
That's awesome. The one thing that really I like to pivot off that conversation, and I think it's where we're going to go for the rest of this interview or discussion, is a lot of the numbers that get reported by Wall Street Journal, Fortune, CNBC, Bloomberg, CNN, whatever your favorite headline or magazine or website is national information, whether it's national sort of owner occupant residential or national commercial. And you've heard me talk about this a lot, and no more true today than ever was you have to learn your market. Right?
Yeah.
It is about your market. You can look at the national headlines and 4 million people in forbearance, and I don't know, Green Street Mortgage or Green Street Advisors talking about commercial falling 11% already, and all that stuff. Interesting, but go figure out your market. Right? Boise is different than Austin, and Austin is different than LA, and LA is different than New York, and New York's different than Fresno. You have to learn your market. And what I'll tell people, at least that have full-time jobs, is go learn one market. Don't get confused and go look at Boise and Miami, because you'll get all discombobulated, in my opinion. Would you think that's fair for the full-time employees?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you only have so much bandwidth, and you only have so much capability to, take in information and assimilate it and then make a decision on. Yeah, I think you're well suited to specialize your learning on either an asset class or a market, or ideally early on both.
Yeah.
You try and learn a specific asset class in a specific market. But if you understand a market really well and you understand the dynamics really well, and you have a general understanding of the different asset classes, I think it's hard uh, to prevent yourself from having investment theses about all the asset classes, because you just start to see, you kind of have a sense for how things may play out, and you say, okay, well, multifamily is going to be a winner, single family is going to be a winner in this market, office may not be a winner. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can, I think understanding the market just helps you get a feel for where the opportunity might be and where the risk might be. I would agree with you.
Yeah, and I love how you stacked it. I call it stacking. In the beginning, folks, when you're not, you've got the bug for real estate investing, but you're in it. Pick an asset and then pick a market and stay true for a while.
Yeah.
Because even if you're like, hey, I'm going to invest in Fresno because that's what Michael talks about, but I'm going to look at everything. I promise you will not learn Fresno. I'll smoke you, because I have 20 years
Yeah.
experience, right? So go
Right.
pick a zip code, go pick an asset type in a zip code, and then go get consistent for 90 days. I mean, that's what I did. I did it every day for 10 years. It's not hard. It just takes focus and execution. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. I knew there was one thing also I wanted to ask you. Um, I did you invest through the last crash, like '08? What was '08 for you like? I forget.
No, I didn't. And that was because, well, I should say this.
You had house, right?
So back then I was working in investment banking, and
Ah,
my
okay.
boss, who's actually one of our investors now, um, he was, uh, he was astute enough to, first of all, he knew I had a passion for real estate, and he also had done many real estate deals kind of on the side.
Oh,
And we were in San Francisco, and we looked together at many different opportunities for
yeah,
commercial properties in San Francisco. And I think it was a combination of my, just inexperience, and his it wasn't at the very top of his priority list, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest.
Yeah.
That we didn't end up pulling the trigger on anything. So
Yeah.
we did search and we did quite a bit of underwriting, but we never pulled the trigger on anything.
Yeah. The reason I asked that is because, and I actually just put a video on it this morning, and I wanted to get your opinion. One market that I've never invested in, but I'm paying astutely attention to, is Vegas. And the reason I'm doing that is because I think Vegas can give us a sign about how bad it could be in other markets. I think Vegas will be hit harder and faster, because in '08, it kind of all fell apart together, right? I invested through '08 through 2010. And for the most part, Vegas and California were in sync. But I believe this time, given forbearance and what I see just happening in Vegas is just horrific. I think Vegas is going to fall first. It's going to fall faster, and it's going to fall harder. And I want to watch that market because I think it will be signs of what we see elsewhere. And I was curious what you thought of that logic.
I was just talking to my wife who about this. Just my comment was like, oh, what is going to happen in Vegas?
Yeah.
It just has to get crushed.
Yeah.
From every possible angle. I mean, it's made for people to congregate.
Yeah. The masses, right?
It's made for conventions.
Yeah.
It's made for everyone's got to get on a plane to get there. Yeah. It's just, man, I mean, everything, every characteristic that a city or a location could have that you don't want right this moment, I think Vegas has. So I agree. I don't know much about the Vegas market. I don't know anything there. But yeah, I would be, I think it'll be a signal to look for. I think it will be telling.
Yeah. I would ask you to add that just so we can talk about it every Tuesday. And it's probably too soon at this point, but pretty soon stuff's going to start to retrade offices. And I mean, it's going to be so painful. I mean, because who wants to live in Vegas with no conventions and 100-degree weather in August, right? With no job. I mean,
yeah, I know, that's right. All the jobs. I don't know. I'd be curious just to look at the jobless claims in Vegas. I mean, I'm sure it's just absolutely through the roof. I know a couple of people just anecdotally who work in the white collar hotel industry who have been laid off.
Yeah.
That were based in Vegas. So it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough sledding for Vegas.
And again, I think yes to all of that. And again, but what really concerns me is, and this is why I'm looking at it, is Vegas the first domino to fall?
Yeah.
And thus Orlando, and then Houston because of oil, and then the Bay Area because of tech, and then New York. The other thing is, it's becoming very clear that the populous states, with this whole Twitter today, I don't know if you saw it. Twitter said you can work from home forever. That was what their headline today. What if you can work at Twitter, get Twitter income, but live in Nevada or live in Texas or live in some other tax-free state? It's kind of sounding good, right? Why do you want to live in the valley?
Well, no question. And this is Jack Dorsey has been vocal about this before. I'm actually, he's been vocal about just decentralizing the workforce. So I think they'll start divesting of their office space.
No question.
Much more aggressively. But I think it's interesting. I was having a conversation with my brother yesterday about this dynamic of where is the best place for decisions to be made. Is it at the government level, federal, state, county? Is it at the individual level on the complete other end of the spectrum? And I think I personally have a view that I would like to see as many decisions as possible pushed down as far as they possibly can go towards the individual level.
Correct. Absolutely.
And what happens is that the employers, and especially the large employers, become the de facto decision makers in those cases, because they just employ a bunch of people. You saw it in the Bay Area, right? Facebook, Google, probably Twitter, and I think Apple, and I'm missing, some of the other big names, but they were some of the first places to say, campus is closed, work from home
Yeah.
indefinitely. We don't know what's going on. We're trying to figure it out, but there's a
Go
serious
home. Yeah.
situation. And they all did this before any government, like any cities, states, anything like. They were
You're
quick
right.
decision makers. And I think actually that works really well. To me personally, it works a lot better than a blanket statement that the city is closed. You can't come into your place of work because it's a mayor or a governor level decision. That's really painful. And I think
Mhm.
the natives are getting restless. I think
Yeah.
people are ready to get back. I think people's risk tolerance, whether people acknowledge it or not, is becoming much greater. People are
Yes.
starting to go out, and see other people a lot more and come into close contact with others. And I have a personal belief that if there is a second wave um, of uh, of infections, I don't think people are going to tolerate another lockdown.
Oh no.
I think this is a one and done.
It has to be. I think what we're quickly realizing, and I think this can just roll into our next conversation. I think California, good old Gavin Newsom, didn't realize he would go from a surplus of arguably 16 or 18 billion dollars last tax year to now having created a 54 billion dollar tax shortfall. Right? That's what he is staring at because he essentially turned off the economy. And there's been no tax revenue, and it's just, I mean, he clearly he did that. He chose to do that, and now he's kind of suffering the cost. And where I wanted to go with this with real estate is my greatest fear is he shit cans Prop 13, right? Something that has benefited teachers and police officers who've been able to stay in their homes because of low tax bases. I mean, the street I grew up on, 90% of those families could not afford to stay there if their property taxes went up because they all bought in the 60s and 70s. And
Yeah.
I don't think Gavin Newsom is going to have a choice. I think he's going to have to get rid of Prop 13, raise taxes, which is going to have an impact on real estate. First, it's going to make a lot of people leave. It's going to bring a lot of inventory on the market, and prices probably come down. Well, that's probably a benefit, but there's no good options now that Gavin Newsom has single-handedly created a $54 billion shortfall.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know if that will be the outcome, but I know for sure it's going to be looked at. I mean, I just
It has
think
to be.
if I were advising Governor Newsom, I would advise we have to take a look at everything. We have to
Yeah.
look at every possible scenario. And then it's a political, these are going to be very political decisions. And so you're going to look for the combination of the most efficient solution that we think will actually work.
Mm-hmm.
And then a very close second, and in some cases, this will be a deal breaker, is how is this going to be received politically?
Yeah.
And if the decision is this is just politically taboo, it's a deal breaker. It's just not going to work politically, even if it's the best financial solution. It won't happen.
I don't know. I hope that's true. I mean, it's one of those third rails that I personally thought would never be touched, but I just stare at that $54 billion and go, ouch. I mean, that makes the Great Recession look like nothing.
Yeah.
And that was done in 3 months. 3 months.
Yeah, there's more to come.
More to come. And then what do you think about this whole Tesla Elon Musk thing, right? So Musk wants to open his manufacturing plant. He went against Alameda. But what I want to ask you about is he's basically told, or at least threatened in a Twitter tweet, that he's like, I'm done with California. I'm moving to Nevada or Texas. This whole Cal exit thing, that really could pick up steam.
Yeah, I think I think it could. And in general, trends that are inevitable, I think are highly likely to be accelerated throughout this pandemic. Okay. There's a trend of companies and people just net migrating out of California.
Long before this, correct.
Yes. That's right. So, and there is in some sense an inevitability to that trend coming to fruition. It's gonna continue.
Yep.
And will this accelerate it? Yeah, I think there's a pretty strong argument that it could accelerate it, because there's a lot of people, business owners and decision makers, that are not pleased with the way that the state government has locked, essentially handcuffed
Yeah.
businesses. And I think
Overregulated and highly taxed.
yeah, and listen, this is all debatable, and
Mhm.
I think uh, we don't need to get into the nitty gritty of debating what was the right thing to do,
Sure.
but I think the decisions certainly have consequences, and I think Elon Musk, being such a high profile, outspoken, person, yeah, I mean, I think what he does is going to be considered seriously by a lot of other people.
Mhm.
I also think that there is going to be a ton of legal action,
Yeah.
uh, or at least lawsuits filed against pretty much every municipality in California,
Yeah.
and that'll be interesting to watch. I don't I hate that that's the case, but I just don't see any way around it. There's going to be lots of business owners that sue
Yep.
the city, the county, the state, and some of those lawsuits are going to be won
Oh yeah. Some of
by
them
the
will,
business
just
owner.
numerically speaking. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so who knows, that may end up being a financial burden on top of
Mm.
the initial kind of shutdown effects.
Yeah. So this all goes back to, there's a couple of things. First, learn your market, understand if you're investing outside California, you may have a tailwind because of businesses and people leaving California. We are the most populous state, at least currently. So that will be interesting. I think it also comes from the East Coast. I think New York sees an equal amount of folks leaving, maybe going south. Um, and then
Well,
again, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt you, but there's an interesting dynamic that I think will play out here, in that the states, the states that are in the worst financial condition are the ones that are most incentivized to make policy decisions that their inhabitants do not want.
Yeah.
And those things can accelerate moving out of that state. Like Illinois is an example of they're in very dangerous position, just with their balance sheet. California, New York,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I think those are all factors. But I think, going back to your earlier point, Michael, you said something. You said, well, I was reading the NMHC uh, National Multi-Housing Council data, which showed like 80% collections
Yep.
in the first week of March. And so you read the headline and you say, okay, 80%, it's not terrible. But, you just said you got mid to high 90s.
Yep.
And so there's a disconnect there, right? There's your local data, there's your local information that you have on your desk.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's here's what's happening in the rest of the country. And I think one thing that I would encourage people to do is take in the information, read the news, understand what's going on, but you can't take it for face value. You have to critically think about why this may be over or understated, and how it compares to the data that you personally anecdotally see.
Yeah.
And I just think, don't overlook the anecdotal data. Like the deal we're doing in Boise, if I wasn't researching, and people in the Boise market weren't constantly telling me how much they didn't feel like they were affected much by coronavirus, I wouldn't have believed that they hit a record for median home price in April. I just wouldn't have believed that. That would have been like, I would have felt like that was a clickbait headline.
Yeah.
The very first Apple store to open in the country opened in Boise. That's a signal from Apple that like things are actually ready here.
Right.
And so I think you got to tease apart the national macro information from your specific market, and you got to go into things thinking critically.
Yeah. So that's it. I'll be interested to see what you think of this, because when I think back to my first 10 years of investing, I would probably tell you that 98 to 99% of the research I did was just on my market. I didn't really care, because I didn't have time, because I had a job, right? I had a job that took me all over the place. And thus any sliver of time I had was on Fresno, right?
Yeah.
Fresno County. Now today, because again, I have more time, it's probably 80-20. It's still 80% Fresno, right? It's my location where my net worth is, cash flow is. But time has allowed me to expand. And maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's helpful. Maybe that's not, I don't know. But it's just interesting thinking about it, but having this conversation with you.
I think I did the same thing. I think I honed in really tightly on my market when I first started personally.
Mhm.
And the thing that I may have missed is, um, how does my market fit into the bigger picture?
Mm.
You know, like
Yeah.
I may know what side of the street is the right side to be on, and I might know the submarket that makes sense and submarkets that are not going to make sense.
Yeah.
But what's happening in the city? What are the job trends in the city? What's happening on the outskirts of the city? How is the city growing, or is it growing, or is it shrinking?
Mm.
uh, who how is the population, like the demographic, how is it changing over time? Are more blue collar jobs being created, or more white collar jobs being created? Or is the city losing jobs? And those things, I think, are really, they are important. I think they can point you towards trends that that you should know about and you should be aware of.
Mhm.
I do think, though, that in terms of priority, knowing the market is most important. And then I would say understanding, how does your market fit into its, what cog is it in the overall ecosystem,
Yeah.
is important.
Very cool. Very cool, man. Well, as we wrap this up, I want to say congratulations on your Boise deal. Sorry to hear about the deal that backed out, and we'll see what happens with Virginia, huh?
That's right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks,
Any
Michael.
any closing thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
No, I'm gonna go. See if I can help out with the kids and enjoy the rest of my afternoon. As always, it's a pleasure.
Thanks, buddy.